Hello chess friends and welcome to Zarov Chess channel and welcome to a very brutal match game that's going on now these days. It's Stockfish versus Stockfish NNUE, this improved version of Stockfish, this efficiently updatable neural network based chess engine Stockfish. And as I'm recording this video, the result is plus 60 for Stockfish NNUE against Stockfish, so it's really over. The match game is over because I don't think that Stockfish can catch up this result. So the Stockfish NNUE is evolving, it's becoming more and more brutal, and what the good thing for us is that these engines are choosing these tactical openings. They're playing like the King's Gambit, the King's Indian, they're playing the Dragon Sicilian. And today I wanted to show you such a game in the Dragon Sicilian in the so-called Yugoslav attack, and this Yugoslav attack is one of the most tactical openings that you can play. It's really incredible with great tactical sidelines, with many sacrificing possibilities, immortal queen sacrifice possibilities. So this is it. This is what I've searched for. I'm really excited. I hope you realized. And in order to spice up the video a little bit, I've decided to add some Mortal Kombat sounds in this video, as Mortal Kombat was my favorite video game when I was a kid, and it will be, I think, in the most brutal moments we'll add a Mortal Kombat sound. I think it could be really good. I hope you don't mind, because chess is brutal now these days. It's evolving, of course, but it's really incredible how brutal it can be sometimes with some immortal sacrifice. So I've added some brutal sounds here. So let's check out the game. It was here with the white pieces, Stockfish NNUE against Stockfish, the normal version, sort of. But the old Stockfish engine was brutal anyway, so now this NNUE, as I said, is really incredible. So we're starting the game with the sound of this old school Mortal Kombat sound. Test your might. So okay, we're testing the might of Stockfish, this old version here. Stockfish NNUE opened with the move e4, c5, knight to f3, d6, d4, c takes d, knight takes d, and we have now, after knight to f6, knight to c3, g6, the Dragon Sicilian. So if you're familiar with my YouTube chess channel, I've created this hyper-accelerated Dragon Sicilian defense series in which I show you an effective way how to play against e4. So the difference between the hyper-accelerated and this normal Dragon Sicilian is that you don't play the move d6. So if you have troubles maybe to play against the Dragon, against e4, you can check out my playlist. I've created more than 25 videos. You can check it out, maybe have a good opening preparation as black. Here we have the normal, but of course it gets never normal. Here bishop to e3, we have bishop to g7, we have f3, and now after castling, queen to d2, knight to c6, bishop to c4. I'm skipping a little bit faster this opening because this is really the normal setup. So it's the most often played line of the Dragon Sicilian. So what I've been asked now also in one of my previous videos, when is it possible to castle queenside? When is it possible to castle kingside? One of my new followers, he asked me this question. I wanted to answer him this question because now I don't think, you see, that it brings you so much to castle kingside. So that's the idea of the Yugoslav attack. Because first of all, with the move f3, you have weakened already your kingside a little bit. After the move here, bishop to d7 and queenside, we have now this f3 move not as a weakness. We have this f3 move as a strength, because this f3 not that it only prevented some knight to g4 ideas. This move f3 has a double function with potential g4 ideas, and this is this so-called opposite side attack game where we have the kings on opposite sides. So the main idea is to simply be faster on that side where you're attacking, even if you have to sacrifice some pawns, even if you have to sacrifice some pieces, but the main idea is to open the path to the king. So that's the only way how to win the game. That's why this opposite side attack games are always so tactical. But when is it possible to go into a flank attack like this with g4 h5, g4 h4 h5? So it's only possible when basically no moves of the pawns are possible in the center. So you see now all of this center here is a little bit opened, many weaknesses are there, but it's really hard for both sides to push the pawn. If you for instance, for white, push the pawn on e5, knight takes e5 will happen. If black tries something like e6, then he weakens the pawn on d6. If you try e5, then again you weaken the d6, but also you weaken the square on d5. So it's really sort of an immobile center here. No one can move pawns here in the center. White cannot move the pawn, black cannot move the pawn. So far the center is not fixed, but it's immobile. So that's why a flank attack here is possible. If the position in the center would be some kind of dynamic, then a flank attack wouldn't be so aggressive, because suddenly the center could get opened and you could have some troubles with your king in the center, maybe even with the king here on c1. So that's why here so far the main idea is the flank attack. So rook to c8, we have bishop to b3, still common theory and this common setup of the Yugoslav attack. So as I said, our main idea from white is g4, h4, h5, trading off the dark square bishops here on h6, get the queen somehow here on h6, and creating a rook and queen battery and deliver checkmate. So that's the main idea. Sometimes it works, sometimes it's not. Maybe we can start the game with an attack like this, but then after that we can go into a favorable endgame where we have maybe a pawn up or similar ideas. So many of these games are ending with checkmate threats, but as I said, as a strategical and tactical idea, this is the main setup of the Yugoslav attack. So here knight to e5 with preparations to play knight to c4, because after this potential h4 h5 h takes g6, you see there is a little bit here of a tension of the slice square bishop against the king, so when we are attacking the g6 pawn. So that's why one of the main ideas of blacks is to cover this light square with potential knight to c4 moves. Here we have h4 and now knight to c4. The best way, still in my opinion, here is to play h5. At least if we are stopping here white's progress, at least for a while. There are many sacrificing lines with g4 immediately and similar ideas, but the main line would be something like king to b1, and here knight to c4, bishop takes, rook takes c4, and now knight to b3, still with possibilities to play on our main idea bishop to h6. But here, after the move h4, knight to c4 was played by Stockfish, this normal version, and Stockfish NNUE took bishop takes c4, rook takes c4, still common theory, and we have now h5. So let's add a Mortal Kombat sound here. I would like to say this is simply
fatality.
Fatality. So why is this fatality? Because this move cracks the position immediately in front of black's king. Whatever you do, you are now on the defensive side. That's the main problem of blacks. There are counterattack possibilities, because the main strength of the Yugoslav attack from black's perspective is the dark square diagonal. There are even some rook takes c3 tactical possibilities, but that's maybe for another video, because the Yugoslav attack has, I think, 1 billion of tactical sidelines, so that's why I cannot show you all of them in this video. Here there are now two choices. Should we take with the knight, or should we take with the pawn? If you take with the pawn, g takes h5, then it gets really brutal. It's e5 here, cracking the position immediately. If you try something like knight to e8, then you get rook takes h5, and we got our goal, bishop to h6. No defensive pieces are there. The h7 pawn is weak. The queen will come into the game, and there are really some nasty tactics here. So in the game, knight takes h5 was played. Pardon me, here I wanted to show you also one great line after g takes h5 and e5. If you take here d takes e5, you should really be familiar with this tactical line. Then you have a great move, knight to f5. The main idea is now to get rid of this dark square bishop. The dark square bishop now has a function as the main defensive piece. If we take it off, then the main idea is bishop to h6, queen to g5, and again creating some checkmate threats. You cannot take, of course, because of the queen and rook battery here on the d file. You lose decisive material. So you see how dangerous this tactic can be. Here in the game, knight to h5 was played, but now g4. That's what I meant. We have sacrificed now pawn in order to get some kind of an activity. We have now again the possibility to open the h file. Again, there are now these tactical threats, knight to f6 and now king to b1. Improving the position of the king is also very important in the Yugoslav, because in some occasions you could face some rook takes c3, maybe with queen to b6 ideas. So there are ideas here for black, but first of all, black has to solve the tactical problems on the king side before then maybe trying some counterattack possibilities. Here, rook to e8. The idea behind this move, rook to e8, is after potential bishop to h6. As I said, our main goal is to get rid of the dark square bishops. After the move rook to e8 and bishop to h6, black could escape here and stay with the dark square bishop on this diagonal here, and wouldn't be forced to trade off the bishops and still have some kind of a counter attack possibility here against this weak c3 square. In the game b3, played by Stockfish NNUE, and we have now rook to c7. a4, this is now Stockfish NNUE theoretical novelty. This move hasn't been played in history, at least not in maybe a top grandmaster or top engine level history. a4, this move prevents an immediate breakthrough here of the move b5, because if we try, for instance, maybe bishop to h6 immediately, there are now several choices for black, but one of the main tactical ideas is maybe here to sacrifice the pawn with the move b5. I think I have analyzed one game by Hikaru Nakamura where he played this idea to this move b5 in order to sacrifice some material, just in order to somehow get the b file open. So a4, great positional idea to prevent this attack, because now you see b5 is not a possibility, because we have now a great sort of a compact position. This a4 is supporting the b5 further, and this could be now a good defensive setup for white. So in the game a6, we have now g5. This move really surprised me, as it locks now the dark square diagonal for the bishop and the queen. Still, of course, we have some queen to h2 and queen to h7 tactical possibilities, but the problem is now that black has this defensive idea of knight to h5 and locking this file. So in the game now, knight to d5, played by Stockfish NNUE, rook to c8, knight to e2, and now rook to c6. We have rook takes h5, and this deserves really, again, fatality, sort of. Fatality. Let's see that it's fatality here by Stockfish NNUE, because now you have to take. You don't, of course, have counterplay possibilities. The queen is so far out of game, you cannot include the queen. The dark square diagonal is a little bit problematic here, maybe here for white, but after rook takes h5, this is really a one-way ticket. After g takes h5, we have knight to g3, attacking the pawn. We have h5, h4, and now knight to h5. Bishop to e5. As I said, we don't want to lose this dark square bishop, as it's our main defensive piece in front of the king. But now bishop to d4, undermining now the dark squares here. We want to get the queen here and deliver checkmate on g7. So that's why king to h8 was played. The idea behind this move is to get our rook finally to g8 and protect the g7 square. So in the game, f4 was played here by Stockfish NNUE, and I've analyzed now a counterattack possibility. What would happen if you try something like bishop to g4? Then it's really, I don't know how to say it, but it's really sort of a finish him situation. It's game over here for black, because we have now some tactics. After the move bishop to g4, we would simply take f takes e5. You lose the rook maybe, but now it gets really dangerous. This discovered attack by the bishop is simply too much to handle. After king to g8, we have e takes f7, king takes f7, and now queen to d1. We have e6 is sort of a possibility to kick away the queen, but now queen to f3 is of course, this main tactical idea, king to g8 and now knight to f6, it's game over. You are forced to give up the queen. If you don't give up the queen, then maybe you can move here to h8, but now here queen to h5, here after rook to e7, now comes a very, very nice discovered attack, knight to h7. You have to maybe here play king to g8 or lock maybe the star square diagonal, but again, knight to f6, you have only one square and you get checkmated here on g8. So that's why after the move f4, here bishop takes d4, queen takes, and now e5, and now we have queen to f2. This is now really this great tactical calculation here by Stockfish NNUE. Here, of course, again, black has this idea, bishop to g4, which I've analyzed a couple of moves before. So bishop to g4, it seems now that white doesn't have anything. You will lose one of these pieces, but that's really this great tactical calculation because rook to h1. Now we have reached really the position of the thumbnail. This is now the counterattack here that Stockfish NNUE has prepared here, sacrificing another piece, bishop to h5, queen to h5, here bishop to g6, and now here you can try to solve this puzzle. Let's have here this test your might idea.
Test your might.
So take your time and try to solve this tactical puzzle. What is the idea here? How to win this game immediately? It's losing for black here. Knight to f6 is of course the main idea. The problem is now if you try king to g7 in order to escape somehow, then you get queen to h6. You have to move the king, and now we have after king to h8, queen to h7, bishop takes, rook takes h7, and it's game over. So great tactical preparation here, but after the move knight to f6, here is the problem. Stockfish found a counterattack with the queen sacrifice. We have queen to f6, we have g takes f6, and now we have e takes f4. And the idea of queen to h6 immediately doesn't bring you so much as here black can cover with rook to g8. That's why Stockfish NNUE tried rook to g1, getting rid of this bishop, because this bishop is really a good defender here. In the game, rook to c8 was played, and now rook takes g6. After f takes g6, we have now f7, not to play this move immediately queen to h6, because we can cover. After potential f7, we could go king to rook to g7, and you see you don't have the promotion, everything is covered, and if white loses this pawn, it's game over. So that's why Stockfish NNUE had to play this endgame correctly. Rook takes g6, after f takes g6, f7, here rook to e6. If you don't play here rook to e6, you're going to be checkmated, because if rook to f8, you get queen to f6, and it's checkmate. You don't have squares for the king to escape, so that's why rook to e6, necessary move, and now queen to h3, creating this really nice attack on both of these rooks. Here rook to f8 was played, queen to e6, and now king to g7. We have e5, d takes e5, queen takes e5, and now king takes f7. What to do now? You see there is still this problem after queen to f4, king to g8. Still black has both of these pawns, but these are of course connected pawns. This could be maybe a draw if just one thing would be possible. If here a 2 versus 2 situation would be on the board, then it would be probably a draw, because black could play something like rook to f7, king to g7, and try to protect everything. But the problem is now white has this extra pawn on the queen side and can create a pass pawn. So that's why white has a winning position. Rook to f7. Here Stockfish NNUE tried some checks and simply push this pawn further. We have queen to d5, and now simply b5, king to g7. The problem is now for black that you cannot play so freely with the rook, as you always risk some double attacks on the king and maybe on the rook. So here after the move c5, we have now some checks here by Stockfish, but not a problem. Here after the move c6, we have g5, and now c7. this is sort of a come over here by Scorpion moment, because this is now really a decoy. After rook to c7, we have now queen to e5 and the fork on the king and the rook, and this game is over, because now here after g4 the king will come into the game. You cannot push this pawns too far, because now after queen takes g2, king to h6, king to f7, and now we have the checkmate here on g6. So this was really fatality mode here by Stockfish NNUE. Great attacking performance in such a great opening, like the Yugoslav attack of the Dragon Sicilian defense. This is now the best chess that we can see these days. It's really incredible how the Stockfish NNUE performs, but the most important thing is that it evolves. It will become much more stronger, I believe, in the future, and chess has a bright future. We'll see. Stockfish NNUE versus Lila C0. Still, there is some tension between these two top engines. Stockfish now, this normal version is maybe part of the past. I'm not sure. Okay, it's maybe for you to comment on that. But as I said, in the future we'll have some great games, and I hope that you enjoy this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. And if you want to see more of such brutal chess games, check out my commented chess games played by computers, with some more Lila 0, Alpha 0, Stockfish, and many more games. And if you want to see humans in their best chess games, you can also check out my best chess games of all time series. And if you like this content, you can also subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.